Just
There
about
we
there.
go. As we're live streaming.
Are we? It says it's setting up your YouTube live. Done redirecting to YouTube.
Bear with us. We're having to do some new things.
Well, it's up there, so I should start then.
All right.
Good morning, day, afternoon, evening, for wherever you are. We are broadcasting from Bayside, Port Arlington, Australia, and Chattanooga, southeast Tennessee. Those of you watching our YouTube channel, thank you for joining us. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be notified when a new video is uploaded. You can always go over to a Simple Walk Facebook page, find the link, and join us live in the Zoom room. We are sorry to say that due to a change in work commitments, Scotty is unable to continue hosting this study group. For those of you who listen via Power Faith Radio, we will not be streaming live for the foreseeable future. Scotty will upload the study at his earliest convenience. If you have any questions for us, please email us at outreachnoah@gmail.com. Hello, Terry, how are you?
Doing good. Doing good.
Thanks.
We've been off for about a month. I'm going to have to work some kinks out and bugs along the way here, probably for the next few weeks.
Yeah, and me being new at this and had a difficulty getting us live streaming to start with by pushing the wrong account didn't help either.
That's nothing but a thanks. All fun and games, isn't it, Ronald?
Yeah, well, that's right. It worked straight off the bat when I did a test run the other week, but today it's another story. I've forgotten what I actually did, but we got it sorted.
That's how it happened with Scotty a few times. He hit the wrong button.
Yeah, well, I was picking our account instead of this Zoom account to
Right.
get the ball rolling correctly, and then the correct YouTube channel came up to connect to. So we're up and running
That'll work.
anyway. Maybe next week I won't forget.
That'd be no problem. Everyone just bear with us. We're going to be having a little bit of growing pains here as we've had to change formats a little bit, change YouTube channels, trying to get everything linked up and connected together. Scotty had done it for so long. That's why I called him the engineer,
Yeah, just second nature to him, wasn't it?
I mean, he was
I
running
was
all
gonna make a bad comment
do what?
that Ronald better not do what Scotty does.
Oh,
What?
disconnect us
Hit the
totally.
wrong
Hit the
hit the
wrong
wrong button
button
immediately.
and screw it
Yeah,
all off the internet.
yeah. Oh, and the Zoom room link has changed from the previous one. The one it is now, mine, is a permanent one. So if you're not sure down the track, just hit any of the ones from this starting point again, and you're connecting to us here.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll hand it over to you, Terry. Would you like to introduce our
All right.
friends in the Zoom room and then move on into
All right.
today's study in Genesis?
Yes, we got, of course, Samuel is with us, and Joanne and Linda is with us. Veronica was bouncing in and out. She's somewhere down in Florida, but her internet connection's not too good tonight. So I don't know if don't think she's gonna be able to join us. She a while ago came in 2 or 3 times and then just it faded out on her. So just keep Veronica in your mind and prayers as well. She's out traveling around. Said she's somewhere down middle, I think middle Florida now. Gonna stay there probably for the winter time. But just want to thank everyone for coming and hanging in with us. When know we'll be picking a few more people up as long as we go, as long as they figure out that we're back on and up and running, and God willing, be able to do it every week and stay up with it. Like I said, we're new Zoom links, new connections. It's going to take a little bit of time to work out the bugs, but we're okay. I'm going to continue on in our journey in Genesis. Tonight we'll be looking at Genesis chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. I think this is part 17 in our journey. If you have any questions, whatever, we have the chat room here in the Zoom room. We have the chat also going in the YouTube channel. Feel free to drop any questions and comments in there. Ronald will be kind of keeping an eye out on those. Plus, we also have, like Ronald said, our email address at outreachno@gmail.com. Feel free to email us anytime. If you have any questions based on the material we cover or anything else that you have, just go ahead and send them. We're going to be collecting them because we're going to continue from time to time to do a Q&A sessions like we were doing right, before Scotty had to leave. He had to take on some extra work and everything. He's helping some people out right now, and so he's kind of doing he's Mr. Sadaka. He's Mr. Charity, so he's working to help take care of some things he's doing. I call it like charity work. When he's helping Danielle out. I'll remember who Danielle was, and has had some illnesses and things, and so he's kind of stepped in to be her dad, like, and take care of her. But we're going to continue on with our Genesis study, and we're going to be getting into some really good areas. I feel tonight some of the material is going to be really good. Next week we'll probably cover I think it's 10 through 15. Yeah, we'll cover 10 through 15, which is not a whole lot there. I'm using the Rabbi Samson R. Hirsch Chumach as our main source, our main guide that we're using. But when we get into verse 16, we'll probably be spending some time there because it's a very important passage for us to learn and to know. As we walk with God, there's a lot of information there. I won't give too much tonight on that because we're fixing to come up on that. So, plus tonight, Scotty had a question that we were going to cover that he had gotten. And so tonight's going to kind of be an answer to part of that. One of the questions he was asked, someone asked him, was man made for the earth or earth made for man? And we partially covered that a few verses back when we talked that God gave Adam and Eve the blessing to multiply, to fill the earth, and to subdue it. And so we can see that the earth was made for us. And tonight we'll continue when we get into the garden. We'll see a little bit that we can tell that the earth was made for us, made for our dwelling place, for God to give us a place to live and to walk with him. Ronald, I'm just so used to asking Scotty something at the beginning. I almost asked, oh, wait a minute, you wouldn't know that. Like I said, give Ronald a little bit of leeway here to some growing pains and changes that we've had to make. Genesis chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. And again, I'm reading from the Rabbi Hirsch Chumach. It says, and God planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he placed the man whom he had formed. In verse 9, and God caused every kind of tree to grow from the soil, delightful to the sight, good for food, and the tree of life in the middle of the garden, and also the tree of the knowledge of what is good and what is evil. And there's a whole lot we can really get in verse 9. I'm just going to cover what Rabbi Hirsch covers, but he breaks these things down. Like I've said in the past, he really breaks these things down and makes them very easy to learn, see what the plain, simple text is teaching us. We've debunked a lot of misinterpretations and misunderstandings along the way by learning the basic meaning of the text itself from the Hebrew origin. And again, we're going to see a little bit of that, especially when we get into verse 9. Rabbi Hirsch states here that verse 8 is the divine providence which educates man. He's talking about the name of God here, or Elohim, and it's Hashem Elohim. If you remember, those who were with us when we first discussed when God's name, Hashem, the Yud He Vav He, and Elohim together was first used in the book of Genesis, the first time in the Torah. It's been ever since the creation of man, when God refers to man and refers to God in relationship with man, it's Hashem Elohim. It's the Yud He Vav He Elohim, the sacred name of them. They're always together in dealing with man. And that's no difference here, because it says Hashem Elohim placed man. So the divine providence, this is who educates man, planted a garden for man. And the word garden in Hebrew is Gan Eden. Gan Eden. And the word Gan, and I found this really interesting. The word Gan stems from a root word that means to guard, to protect. And so in Hebrew, the word Gan denotes a place that is fenced in and protected for man's purpose. And also from that root word in other languages, is like in German, Garten, and in Hebrew, garden. In another language is Yardim, which all means to guard. All of these, from even all the other languages, the word garden means to guard or to protect. Eden denotes the satisfaction of all of man's requirements. And he says usually this means all of his physical requirements, his physical needs. So the Creator had put man in a place that would guard him and make sure that all of his needs were met. He goes on and says the word Eden is related to another Hebrew word which means a basis or a column base. And so a basic concept of Eden is the concept of comfortableness, a condition that causes a pleasant feeling, something that gives a pleasant feeling to the senses, setting the mind at ease. So we see here that he put man into a place that he could be guarded. All of his needs were met, and therefore his mind was at ease. There was no worries. No worries about anything. And so it's kind of interesting when we get into the Hebrew. We always read in the, growing up, God put man in the Garden of Eden. But when you break the Hebrew of that word down, God Eden down, then we see what the Creator is doing with his new created creature called Adam. Then it says that he placed Adam in this Gan Eden. God not only put him there, he stationed him there, giving him a task and a position. What is stated in this general text is even explained in the following verses that we're going to be getting into, especially in verse 16. Is a very, very important passage, because it discloses the condition of which man was placed in the garden. It says man was created outside of paradise, and that he was commanded to live in paradise. Rabbi Hirsch says he was commanded to live in paradise in this world. This world was to be paradise. The earthly paradise is the destiny of man on the earth in this world. And I love how he put this right here. I actually took my note card and wrote this down and set it up. We are shown here what we should be. We are shown what we should be, how we should live, and how this world would be a paradise if we all would be what we were commanded to be. Let me reread that. We are shown here in Gan Eden. We understand what the word Gan Eden means. We are shown here what we should be, how we should live, and how this world would be a paradise if only that we would be what we were commanded to be. Another element of this passage, when you look at what we have here, we have the Gan Eden. God created a place of protection, a place that takes care of all of man's needs, where his mind is at rest. There's no worries, there's no stress, there's no enemies. Everything is where it's supposed to be. Man was to be a man at rest, living in a paradise, following what God has commanded, and man was being what he was commanded to be. And another thing that we see here when in this passage where it says, and God placed the man, we also see here that God's sovereignty is shown to us. His sovereignty is shown to us, and therefore we also can derive from this passage, along with, when we get to verse 16, we're going to see there too. But this passage of verse 8 denotes a prohibition of idolatry. Man was only to serve God alone. God was his protector. He placed him where he wanted him to be. He put him in paradise and said, everything is here. We're going to see this in verse 9. But by the words that he placed him in the garden denotes a prohibition of idolatry, that God alone has the sovereignty over Adam. Go ahead, Ronald.
Hey, seeing Adam was formed outside the garden and then placed into the garden, is it possible that he was shown what it was like on the outside of paradise and the difference that it would be in paradise?
You would think
to
so,
work with to work with and stay within the paradise.
Yeah, because we don't have
right
the time. Yeah, God, the Torah, the Creator doesn't give us the time period of how long he was outside before he was brought. And there's some rabbis that have some very interesting teachings on that we won't get into, because there's a lot of the oral Torah that was given to Moses, which was the oral message, the oral understanding of what he was told to write down. There are things within that kind of helps fill in a little bit of these blanks. But yeah, he was made outside and he was placed, so we don't have a timeline between the two. So it would make it interesting that once Adam got to that place, he could tell the difference between what was out and what was in.
Yeah.
So that was a good point, Ronald. Good question. Something to give you something to think about. You think about when there's a lot to think about that, Ronald. How many of us has been on the outside of the Creator and his will? Then when we all, and I this is my terminology, when we convert to the God of Israel, not to a religion, but to the God of Israel, and cling to his ways. Just like, he says in, I think it's Jeremiah 16 or Jeremiah 14, when he tells the earth to turn to him. All the people of the nations to turn to him. In Isaiah chapter, I think it's 1 or 2, where he says, the nations are going to be flooded floating to Jerusalem to learn his ways and to keep his to learn his ways and to walk in his paths. So, and we're going to see here in another passage or another thing that Rabbi Hirsch brings up actually after this right here, that God has given us examples. This is the first one, the Garden of Eden and Adam. Adam tasted life outside the garden. Then he was brought to the garden. And then we're going to see another example that's lived before us for almost 3,000 years. I'm fixing to talk about. But that's a very good point about being outside of God's plan, being inside God's plan, and what the difference is. Inside God's plan is like he says right here, it's supposed to be paradise on earth. There is no stress on the mind. Your needs are met and taken care of. But man doesn't get that just freely. He has a responsibility. It's not a free for all in that. So that was a good question. I didn't think about that one. That's being outside then brought in. That was good. I'm gonna have to put some of that in my notes for future study. Rabbi Hirsch goes on and says, this message is destined to be repeated in a later period. This message of outside, inside. Now, because I see now the outside, inside. I didn't see that till you brought that up. But said, Rabbi Hirsch goes on and says, this message is destined to be repeated in a later period. And an exemplary selection of mankind will be living in Eretz Israel. Remember, God separated a land that we call today Israel, the land of Israel. It says, which likewise is like a Garden of Eden for the people of God's Torah, the Jewish people. Through the abundance of blessing that will be bestowed upon the land, the world will be shown a second time how abundant is the good that can be attained in this world when God's will reigns alone in all aspects of human life. So we see here, we have the example, Ronald, of, like you said, God created man outside, brought man into the garden, gave him a position, gave him not only a position, but also a task. He has a task to do. Then we're going to get later on about the issue of about falling out of that place called the garden. Then God raises up Israel in a desert. They were a family tribe that became a nation at Mount Sinai. So Israel was formed like a man outside of the Holy Land, what we call the Holy Land. Then they were brought into the land. And when we read about all the blessings and the curses put upon them by God, and I don't like the word curses because it has a negative tone in certain areas, but he basically tells them, if you do good, this is going to happen. If you don't do good, this is going to happen, which we're going to see that in chapter 4. Again, nothing's new under the sun. So we see in the world's view, God developed a man. Matter of fact, in Exodus chapter 4, verse 22, he tells Moses to go tell Pharaoh that Israel is my son, my firstborn. So he's formed a new being, and he did. It's a new being called Israel. outside of the land, brings Israel inside of the land, and they have all the exact same promises of paradise that Adam had. You think about it. And that's what Rabbi Hirsch is saying here. So God raised up an example of Gan Eden with the people of the Torah. And now we see what's happened over the period of time and the years when Israel has went the way that Adam went. It was outside of the land, outside of the garden, brought inside the garden, brought inside the land, and then they were expelled.
Isn't that pretty much what's going to happen when Moshiach comes? I mean,
Yeah, he's going to bring it
and we'll be outside.
Yeah,
and then
Israel's going to be
brought
outside the land as they are again, and they're going to be
Israel.
brought back.
Yeah. So it
And
just
then
kind of keeps repeating.
It's a repeat. What God is trying to tell us, all humanity, look at Adam. See, for thousands of years, the world didn't have Bibles and books to read this stuff like we are blessed with today, and teachers to teach us, like the rabbis. And Rabbi Hirsch has recorded his message. He lived over 200 years ago in Germany, and all his teachings are recorded now that we are able to have. So back before we had all of this, God put Israel in the land of Israel and the nation of Israel as a living example before the world as Adam and the garden. And I really had never looked at it like that until I got into this, doing these studies. And then Ronald brings up this question about the outside of the garden. I'm like, and that clicked everything together. It's like Rabbi Hirsch said, was repeated. Adam in the garden was repeated through Israel and the land of Israel. And we're going to get another repeat when he brings Israel back to the land from all the nations. Then the whole world is going to see what it's like and what the example of living inside with God. But this time, the future tells us that the Torah is going to flow out of Jerusalem like a mighty river, a mighty sea, unto the nations. And through that living water of the Torah flowing through the earth, the whole earth will eventually become the garden, the Gan Eden. Man will eventually, one day, man will come back to the garden. All humanity. And that's the picture that we got with Israel. Israel was made. Israel was brought in. Israel didn't do so good. Israel was taken out, but Israel's going to be brought back. And that's going to be the picture of all humanity when all of humanity will come back to the garden. And that's what we see here in this passage. And we see here where it says, and God placed him. That shows us God is sovereign. He is man's sovereign. He's over man. And man is not to look to anyone or anything else but Hashem Elohim. He is the total provider of Israel and of humanity. For he placed us here. If you think about that, he placed us all here. Ronald, that was really good. All right. Verse 9. And God caused every kind of the tree to grow from the soil, delightful to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was in the middle of the garden, also the tree of the knowledge of what is good and what is evil. Now, this is going to be really interesting here, because what he's going to go over is what most of us have been taught. And he's going to show here in a little ways, that this is not exactly how the correct interpretation is. It says the garden supplied all of man's physical needs. Scripture, however, puts gratification of the sense of beauty before the gratification of the sense of taste and the need for nourishment. Think about that. He says, God said, He caused every tree to grow from the soil. And God in His Torah put everything in its place of importance. We're going to see this. He says, delightful to the sight, good for food. I had never really paid much attention to that before. Rabbi Hirsch goes on, he says, Scripture tells us that God puts the gratification of sense of beauty before the gratification of the sense and the need of nourishment. Here, the aesthetic sense, man's sense of beauty, receives its justification and sanctity. And this confirms the dignity, the higher dignity of man. It's interesting that the higher dignity of man comes through the gratification of the sense of beauty before the gratification of taste and nourishment. The forms of beauty that appears on earth are abundant. And as far as we know, man is the only creature endowed with the capacity to enjoy beauty. This shows the importance of the aesthetic sense of the moral mission of man. So this aestheticness and this sense of beauty is connected with morality. And the morality comes first before man fills his belly. Think about that. It's interesting. Indeed, the forms of beauty are found in creation along with man's capacity for enjoying them. Prevents man from sinking to the level of a beast. Joy in the beauty of nature, and particularly in the beauty of the plant world, leads us to rejoice also in moral beauty. And I wrote something down this morning as I was going through this, some thoughts as I was going through this before I went to work this morning. He says, in an environment where no attention is given to harmony and beauty, man can easily grow wild and unruly. I want you to listen to this part. In an environment where no attention is given to harmony and beauty, man can easily grow up wild and unruly. Man's joy in aesthetic harmony is related to his joy in moral harmony. And evil, ra, the Hebrew word ra, evil, appears as something broken, moral harmony disturbed. I want you to think about this. I wrote this down in our own times, what we're experiencing. I wrote down this morning. It says, what we are seeing in the world today, with all the perverse ways that people are presenting themselves, with all arrays of weirdness. Come on, you look around. I'm just going to say all this transgenderism, identify as cats, the furries, whatever you want to call them, and all this stuff that we're having to see today, these people that are just like, they don't even look like human beings the way some of them have configured themselves. All of that distorts the image of man and the image of God. They have sunk to the level of beast and all sorts of immorality. This is
Oh,
what
that's
we're
deep. That's real deep.
Yeah, that was my morning thoughts that I had before I went to work.
Oh, my.
In an environment where no attention is given to harmony and beauty, man can easily grow up wild and unruly. Man's joy in the aesthetic harmony is related to his joy in moral harmony. Evil appears as something is broken, moral harmony is disturbed. That is what we're going through. We're going through a period of time to where it's always been going on. But something clicked in 2020. My wife and I talk about this all the time. Something clicked in the atmosphere. You can feel it. You know, it's kind of like Dorothy. We're not in Kansas anymore. Something weird's going on. And all of this weirdness has surfaced to the point where it's oozing out.
So the people haven't had any joy in what's around them, and
They're
they're
literally
trying to
miserable
fulfill
people.
a joy within. So they go off on these weird tangents of, I feel like I'm a cat, and they're trying to bring stability and, I suppose, a feeling of happiness within, because the world as they see it doesn't bring them any joy. So they're trying to create their own joy in a whole number of weird
Right.
ways.
Yeah, we're going to see some more of this a little bit as we go in here in chapter 9 and Rabbi Hirsch's discussion. Yeah, they're not happy. Listen to them. I watch. I mean, I don't have TikTok or nothing, but I watch reels on Facebook, and I just keep up with a few things here and there. Watch the interviews with these people. They're not happy. They're miserable. You really get this sense. You somewhat feel, the godly soul of a person who's trying their best to walk with God, not in arrogance, not in hatefulness. You do somewhat get a sense, you feel sorry for what's going on, in this world. And the world is totally lost because it's rejected, the Creator and what He wants. And I'm gonna be honest with you, there's religious ideas out there that is so wrong that has caused people to reject God because of doctrines and the way things are presented. And that's the beauty of coming to the Torah as a Gentile and learning our place in God as the pious among the nations, those that are seeking to walk with God like Noah did. Noah walked in righteousness and moral purity. We're going to get to that and discuss that when we get to chapter 6 and 9 and whatever up through there with Noah.
Because we walk in a
Job,
positive attitude.
Huh?
We walk in a positive attitude, but other faiths
Right.
create a negativity about life.
Yeah, and Job, and God introduces us to Job and says that he was a man of unquestionable integrity and said he's my servant. He doesn't call Job righteous like he called Noah. But he says he's a man of unquestionable integrity. He excuses evil. He is my servant. And Job was one of us, of one of the nations. The sages tell us that they believe that Moses wrote that book. He gave that book to the nations, and that Job is an example for us in our struggle to find the Creator. Even in all his beauty that he was before God, his unquestionable integrity, he shunned evil, and he feared God. And these are God's words about Job. He still struggled with issues with God. But on it, God calls him his servant. So we have so much to learn from what we were given from the Jewish nation to learn by. That's why I've been covering Genesis and going through it slow so we can really look at this here and gain knowledge for how we can be the human being that we were meant, not a religion. I don't like it when people say so-and-so was a good blank religion. Name your religion. That person's a good. I hate that. No, we're human beings. I am not a religion. I'm Adam. I am Adam. Adam, as we learned earlier, is a species, not a name. I am of the species that God breathed into. And when we leave all of this stuff of the world, of the religions of the world, and we come and we cling to the God of Israel and start learning what it is to be a human. And that's really, I mean, I don't care for the term, but that's what the Noahide life is about, learning to be a human as God wants us to be. It's all it is. Rabbi Hirsch goes on and he says about the tree of life. He says, at the end of the section, we read that man having sinned, we're talking about on into, a few chapters down the road here. Man sinned, was barred from this tree so that he should not eat of the fruit and live forever. The implication of the text is that the fruit had a capacity to rejuvenate the energies of man again and again. And so he kept man from the fruit that would allow man to just keep rejuvenating. Now, the tree of evil. And he says, and yet there was another tree that stood in the midst of the garden, but Scripture says nothing of its fruit. Another one of those little bitty side things I never paid much attention to, just reading it. It tells us about the fruit of the tree of life, but it says nothing about the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It only is merely referred to as the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. There are those who presume that only by the partaking of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was man endowed to know good and evil. Now, this is what we were all taught. That he ate of this fruit, now he knows the difference between good and evil. But as long as he had not eaten of that tree, he could not distinguish between good and evil. He goes on, he says, Rabbi Hirsch goes on, and even our philosophers, the Jewish philosophers, getting tongue-tied there. He says, even our teachers have taught this. He says, until partaking of the fruit, man knew only theoretical differentiation, truth from falsehood. But the concepts of good and bad, which belong to the realm of practical sense, were utterly foreign to him. That's what we've been taught. And we agree with that. Now let's learn something here from Rabbi Hirsch. He says, this interpretation, however, doesn't appear to be correct. So like I said, he gets to the text. Freedom of choice distinguishes man as a man. It distinguishes us from the rest of all animal creatures. The freedom of choice. Hence, man would not be worthy of his name without the concept of good and its opposite. Had man been unaware, this is important, if man had been unaware of the concept of good and evil, God could not have assigned him a prohibition.
That hit me this morning when I was reading the verses. Told not to eat. So therefore, you know that it's wrong if you do. As simple as that is what I came to realise this morning myself.
Yeah.
I had never thought of it before, but it hit me this morning, the same thing. There must have been a sense of right and wrong already.
Yes. If he was unaware of that concept, then God couldn't have prohibited him. Once man had violated the prohibition, God could not have held him responsible and punish him. If he was unaware of the concept of good and evil, God could not have first prohibited him, and then once he broke the prohibition, he couldn't have punished him and held him responsible. Yet man was assigned a prohibition. He was subjugated to punishment. It must be then that he possessed a sense of duty and could distinguish between that which was forbidden and that which was prohibited.
Man's first test.
And we're going to see when we get to 16, we're going to be talking really a lot about this. It's God, and I've already brought this up when we went later on. If those of you are new to our journey into Genesis, go back into our YouTube channel and you'll see it's part 1, part 2, part 3, and you'll see as we go through the creation week, God begins to set boundaries when he's making parts of the physical creation. He set boundaries when he created the moon and the sun, the light and the darkness, the waters above and the waters below. God begins to, before the creation of man, God began to set boundaries in nature. And all of that was for man to learn from. And then as man progressed, as we are up to this point, God is setting boundaries, and we're going to see other boundaries when we get to verse 16 and 17. And boundaries is a very important aspect that has been on the earth before man, and it hasn't changed. He goes on and says, and this is none other than the knowledge of good and evil, knowledge that belongs to the realm of the practical reason, not to the realm of theoretical reason. He goes on, so therefore it appears then that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil derives its name according to its subsequent role in the final result. Through this tree, knowledge of good and evil will be acted upon and decided. What we have here is these, again, the biggest part of, our life, and with the seven laws of Noah, are all actions. What we shouldn't be doing. So he says, through this tree, the knowledge of good and evil will be acted upon and decided. Through its fruit, man will choose what is good or bad in his sight. Man will choose what is good or bad in his sight. The earth can become a paradise only under one condition: that we call good only that which God calls good, and bad only that which God calls bad. Now we're going to get back to our generation, what we're going through right now, what I just was talking about, what we're seeing in this world. Rabbi Hirsch says, we must not distinguish good from bad according to the judgment of our senses. If we accept the judgment of our senses, the gates of paradise will be closed to us, and only by the long roundabout routes will man return thereto. Now think about this. All these crazies are going and saying, I identify as this. That is an act of what? Their feelings, their senses. They're distinguishing what is good and bad with what they identify with, their senses, their feelings. They're not using what God said is good and what God said is bad. And he says, as long as we, according to the judgment of our senses, if we accept the judgment of our senses, the gates of paradise is closed. Like I said, they're not happy. Paradise is closed to we got right in front of us what's going on in this world. And I know it, I mean, people are going to get upset what I'm saying, but they're not happy. They're not in paradise. People living in perverse or evil ways. People, I mean, you don't even have to be in that way. You can be people in the gangs, in the cartels. All these people aren't happy. It's not paradise. And as long as they're living off of their senses instead of the knowledge of what God causes good, what God causes bad, they are not in paradise. It's closed off to them. It's closed off to all of us. If we make judgments based upon our senses on how we want to, observe God's commandments, and so I feel like when we're saying I feel I should, we're gonna be closed off to the paradise of what is good. And moreover, he said, Rabbi Hirsch goes on and says, moreover, it appears that the tree derives its name also according to its initial role in the shaping of man's knowledge of good and evil. For this tree taught man what is good. For this tree taught man what is good or bad for him, and how he should distinguish good and bad. And we shall see later, this tree appeals to man's taste, imagination, contemplative mind. His taste, his imagination, and his mind drew man to this tree and tempted him to eat of this fruit. His senses is what drew him to this. Nevertheless, God forbade him to eat of the fruit of this tree. In other words, partaking of this fruit was defined as being bad for man. This tree then was to remind man of that teaching on whose observance of man's whole eminence depends. Partaking of this fruit was defined as being bad for man, and it's to remind him whose observance is man's whole eminence of depends. What we do, our observance, our actions. It's what everything depends on, is our actions. A person's senses, imaginations, and intelligence may tell him that a certain thing is very good, but nevertheless, it may conflict with his higher calling if he partakes of it. It's anything in this life like that. This may be the offense deemed by God as deserving of death. From this tree, we learn that in judging that which is good or evil, man should not rely on his own senses. Man should not rely on his own senses of what is good and what is bad. His own imagination or his own intelligence. Rather, he should obey the revealed will of God and follow the lead of his wisdom. And then, only then, will he fulfill his purpose on the earth and be worthy of having the world shaped into a paradise for him. Those little two verses was packed, wasn't it?
Yes, you're looking on the face value of two verses. It's quite amazing what can be drawn out.
And like I said, that's why I really I love Rabbi Hirsch. When I got his, I don't even remember how I found Rabbi Hirsch. I remember ordering his hummushes, but when I really started getting into certain areas that I was studying at the time, certain passages in Genesis, I started having those aha, life changing moments in some areas that really moved me to change some of my own thoughts and understandings, because he just takes it down to the verse, to the words, and he breaks them apart. We're going to see that coming up in several passages that's up ahead of us, especially in Genesis chapter 4. We're going to take some time and look at the conversation with Cain in some areas, from word for word. And there's a main message there. I've been studying that passage for over 20 years, but when I got into the Hebrew and the Hebrew of Rabbi Hirsch and started learning what was said in the original language, it's life changing. It's life fulfilling. It's freeing to know what God is telling us. And even right here, as I went back over the last couple of days, I've been going back over this stuff, getting ready for tonight. When, and then Ron, you added that point about being outside and then brought inside, and it just, there's so much there that can be learned just on that fact, and it tied so well with what it actually opened up what I had read from Rabbi Hirsch, even better than just my own reading about Israel being an example. But when you brought that up about outside and then brought inside, that he had the taste of what was outside. And I'm like, well, that's just, that's why Israel was outside. Then it was inside. Now it's outside. Now it's going to be brought back. And then the whole Torah coming out of Jerusalem to the world is going to bring all of humanity back inside. Israel's got to go inside first.
Yeah.
Then the rest of us will follow Israel and go back into the garden. And then all humanity will dwell with God in the garden on a worldwide basis. And we just learned from that little verse there in verse 8.
I find it fascinating that so much can be drawn out of just one or two sentences. I mean, you can. I just never realized that you could get that much out of just one verse, that you could
And
talk
God
about it
placed
for
man there.
hours.
Well, we took 3 weeks to get through, and Jonah prayed when we did the book of Jonah, didn't we? It was 3 lessons to get through that one little 3 words.
Yeah, I went through the book of Jonah in my teacher's YouTube channel years ago. Eventually, I want to add that to this. It took me a little over 20 something weeks to go through those 4 chapters, because I got into, going through the book, I got into, Jonah the man, Jonah the prophet, where we had a certain following that was following us at the time. And it was really, that's another book that totally changed my life and how I was acting in certain ways. And so, God willing, we'll get to go through that book as well again. Just, did you use the Art Scroll Book of Jonah, the Art Scroll Chumach series, the little one?
No.
Because that's what I'll hopefully go through. We'll I'll God willing, I'll go through that Star Scroll Chumach series on Jonah.
Right.
It's really good. It's not very thick,
Yeah.
but it's probably that deep in knowledge. It might be little in pages, but just like these 2 verses, it's so. Hopefully, in the future, we'll be going through that.
This this thing with the people of today, it's sort of like follows what I said earlier, but it's like they're trying to create a paradise of their own because they can't see the paradise in this world.
Well, they reject the paradise builder and replace him with other beings. You know, I'm working on if it gets where I can do it, I started working on a blog. I haven't written anything on my Amuna trek in a while that I want to bring out that point of what Rabbi Hirsch teaches, and not Hirsch, but the Rambam. I'm going to bring out, when he's talking about the generation of Enosh, when idolatry was entered into the world. There was something that he said in paragraph 2 of that chapter. And this week, as I was out and about in town, all this last week, and I was reading certain things online, and then I was out in stores walking around, and it just kind of teaching from the Rambam kind of come to my mind that I think we haven't really talked a lot about, because a lot of people struggle this time of year with certain things, and I'm thinking about doing a little bit of writing on it. Started, I think it was yesterday. Got a couple of sentences wrote, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, we got class on Wednesday night. I need to so I had to get my books back out and refresh my mind for tonight. But I hope everyone enjoyed that.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Very insightful.
And those that are new to Outreach Noah, this is what we do. We correlate with what's in Genesis for our life today. Our life as non-Jewish people. And I've been studying aspects of Genesis for almost 20 years, and primarily just the first 9 chapters since 2016. That I've honed in on just those 9 chapters. It's like I get to chapter 9 and I go back to the beginning. And just because everything's there for us, the non-Jewish people. I mean, you start getting past chapter 11, 18, you start seeing the formation of Israel. There are some things that's applicable for us, but chapters 1 through 9 contains everything we need to know to live on earth with God and man. And that's what I'm hoping to bring out in this series as we go. Ronald, I guess I was worried I was going to run short because it's just two verses.
Yeah, we've done well. I went a bit longer than I thought we would. Being a change in format without Scotty here, I thought it'd end up being a bit shorter, but pretty much the same because there's so much to be drawn out of a couple of verses.
God's given Scotty some new duties.
Yeah.
And if those of us who know Scotty knows he's doing exactly what Scotty needs to be doing. That's just who he is. Yeah. He is a man who loves humanity. So
yeah,
he's got him doing, and he's got us doing what we need to do.
Exactly. Okay.
So,
well,
all right. Next, like I said, next week, even though we're going to be covering quite a few passages, unless Ronald comes up with another really good statement like he did earlier that open things up, really something that's going to give me something to think about.
We had discussions on that side of things in the past, you, Andy, and I.
Yeah. So, I love our discussions with Andy. Andy's really good.
Yeah. I'm glad you were still going when I finished with Rabbi Schulman the other morning. I thought, good. We should still be going for a little while at least, so I'll chime in and see if you're there.
Yeah, if he doesn't have anything to do, we have gone.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was, because he didn't have to go off to study with his rabbi. So it stays open a bit longer. So I was glad because, I was basically there for an hour anyway. After, when I came in, we were there for another hour. So, they're very insightful discussions to be involved, that can come up in that just little social get-together. It was great.
So next week, God willing, I hope to cover verses 10 through 15. Now, I'm wanting to do that on purpose because 16 stands, let me see here. Yeah, 16 stands alone, is a very, very important passage.
Mm.
And I want to take time for just that one verse. In 2 weeks, God willing, which what is today? The 12th. The 26th is the night before Thanksgiving here in America. I'll be available because we do our family. We'll be doing our family Thanksgiving this Saturday. We always do it the Saturday before, so my daughters can travel to their guys' families on Thanksgiving Day, because my youngest daughter and granddaughter, they live up in Middle Tennessee, and after they got married, that first Thanksgiving they traveled. They stayed in the car all Thanksgiving Day, and we didn't want that anymore. So we do our family. So I'll be available. Ronald and I'll talk, and we'll talk next week and take a consensus. But I will be available the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. If people want to come and learn, we can do it. If not, hate to skip one again this early, but I mean, it isn't holiday here in America.
Yeah.
A lot of people are traveling and with families. So, but yeah, next week, God willing, verses 10 through 15, we'll take a look at, see what we can learn.
Okay, we'll draw the meeting to a close. Not the meeting, the study. And thank you very much, Terry. Always insightful information coming from you to open our eyes and see a bit deeper into what our scriptures mean in a greater way. And thank you, everybody who joined us here this evening in the Zoom room, and hopefully people will see that are usually regulars will see that we're back up, and the same for YouTube. Hopefully people will realise that we're back up again, and our numbers will grow again. And we will see you all next week. And also, if you any questions, email them to us at outreachnoah@gmail.com. And
like our YouTube channel and share it.
Yes, help it grow. Apparently it gets spread around more. The more likes, and that helps it get spread to more people to see that it's available. So that would be very good. Okay, I'll stop the live streaming now.
Bye,
Okay,
Linda. Thanks for coming
thanks
in.
for coming, Linda. I'll see you Saturday morning. You're muted. Just a sec, I'll unmute you. We'll see you Saturday morning.
Yes.
No worries. Good.
Absolutely.
Good to have you here today. Yeah.
Okay. It's good to be here. I enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay.
Okay. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Amy. And Joanna, you managed to make it through.
Yeah,
You just rest up and take care of yourself, okay?
yeah. It's just trying to get through all this with the second surgery.